Couple of things I want to retouch on this episode today, and basically, I'll be recollecting some of the key stuff I've been talking about in the past month. Again, I'm grateful for the people who keep supporting me on this content journey, and for those who find my content relatable. I always say we are on a journey, we are building, we're building a legacy for ourselves. So, I invite you all to walk the walk with me. I want to start today by asking you a really uncomfortable question. Have you ever worked exhaustingly hard for something, say a degree, a promotion, a specific income goal, maybe buying a house, and when you finally got that thing you were chasing, instead of feeling happy, you just felt, well, empty. You hold the prize in your hands, you look around, and you get this quiet voice in your head which says, well, is that it? Is this what I exhausted myself for? Now, if you felt like that, if you felt that way, I think you're not alone. And I think you're not ungrateful. You're just waking up to a very harsh reality. You've successfully executed a life that you never actually chose. You're building someone else's dream. Welcome back to Future Foundations. We're now officially entering the second quarter of the year, and I thought we should be shifting gears a little bit. In the last few months, we've spent time talking about skills, talking about systems, side businesses, building. Now, I want to ask a very familiar question here. What are you actually building for? What are you actually building towards? Today, let's throw away the regular script. I got a lot of messages from different people, questions about feeling stuck, dealing with the imposter syndrome, figuring out how to price your skills, and just trying to navigate this massive transition from survival to real freedom. These are things I've already talked about before. So today, I just think that we should be having a conversation. We're going to talk about ripping up the traditional scorecard of success. Let's talk about your value, how you charge for it, and how to get out of your own way so you can start building a life that actually looks like you. Let's get into it. Now, we all grew up with a kind of default scorecard. You go to school, get good grades, get a safe job, buy a car, buy a house, get that promotion. We often don't question it because everyone around us is running probably that exact same script, that exact same race. But I was listening to an incredibly successful founder recently, a guy named Toby, and he told this story about his time in the corporate world that I've been unable to wrap my head around it since then. He was in a job that he didn't like, and his boss called him one time to his office to offer him a very massive promotion. Now, most of us in this position will want to celebrate just celebrate that upgrade. But instead, Toby looked at his boss and told him, if you promote me, I'll quit. Think about that for a moment. It's kind of strange, right? But then he was asking himself, why would I work? Why would I move from a job I hate into another role just to spend more hours building a career that I hate even more? You see, climbing higher in the wrong direction is just a faster way to get lost. So many of us are trapped right there in a very similar position. We are terrified of letting go of the good job or the safe path because we are afraid of what our parents will think, what our peers will think, or what society will say. But I want you to remember something we've been talking about in previous conversations. True wealth is not a number in your bank account. I say this very often. True wealth is sovereignty. It's the freedom of your time. If you have $1 million today, but you're trapped in a calendar that you hate, answering to people you don't respect, you're not wealthy. You're just highly paid to be miserable. And of course, a lot of us are so comfortable in that seat. But if you want to get unstuck, I think the very first thing you have to do is to define what success means to you. Not to your mom, not to your neighbors, not to social media, to you. A great way to do is to start at the absolute end. I know it may sound a little dark, what I'm about to say, but try writing your own eulogy. What do you actually want people to say about you when you're gone? Do you want them to say things like, you've worked 80 hours a week and drove a really nice leased car? Of course, that is borrowed wealth. Or would you prefer them to say something like, you were always present, you built things that mattered, and you lived on your own terms? You see, once you write down your own eulogy, your real priorities become painfully clear. When Toby did this at the time that he was at his early 20s, he wrote that he wanted to be remembered as highly present and generous. And that single realization changed everything for him. Because if you want to be present and generous, you can't choose a path that traps you in for hours and weeks with no margin. The business model matters, the lifestyle matters, but of course the planning also matters. Now, once you make that shift, once you decide, okay, I'm going to build my own thing, I'm going to use my skills to create my own freedom, the very next hurdle you hit is in your own mind, your mindset. I see this in many of our communities all the time. You figure out what your portable skills are, you decide to start a side business or a consulting gig, and immediately you freeze. You look at the price you want to charge, and then there's this quiet voice that creeps in, and you start saying to yourself, who am I to charge this much? I've only been doing this thing for about a year or so. So to me, this sounds like fraud. Maybe people are going to laugh at me for the kind of pricing I'm giving out. Let me be real with you about the imposter syndrome. It's not a weakness, it's a symptom of growth. If you don't feel a little bit like an imposter sometimes, it means you're playing your way too safe. It just means you've stepped into a room you haven't been in before. But here's something I've noticed. Imposter syndrome is loudest when you're building someone else's vision of success. When you're chasing a goal that you don't actually care about, something like a title, a salary, a number that sounds impressive, you'll always feel like a fraud because deep down in you, you know you're just performing. But when you're building towards your own eulogy, when the goal is yours and you understand your value, imposter syndrome kind of fades. You're not just performing anymore. You know you're building something. But we have to fix your value. We have to fix how you value yourself. I've talked before about building your portable value. But having value means nothing if you're terrified to charge for it. We suffer from something known as the pricing paradox. We think that if we charge less, we'll win more clients because we are the safe, affordable option. But human psychology doesn't work like that. If you need brain surgery, for example, and the doctor says I'll do it for $50, you're not going to hire that doctor. You most likely run out of that hospital. You want a surgeon who charges say $50K, because as humans we are all wired to think that a premium price signals premium quality of service or work done. Now when you undercharge, it doesn't necessarily mean you're being humble. You're in a way sending a signal. You're signaling to the market that you don't actually believe your solution works. Like I said before, stop pricing yourself or your services based on how many hours it takes you or how many years you've been doing that thing you do. You charge for the outcome and not the process. I used the kind of similar example the last time. If you solve a problem that saves the company $50K in dollars, you're paid for value, not your sweat. So claim it. And here's the thing. When you're pricing, you need to ask yourself, what am I pricing for? Am I pricing to maximize my income, or am I pricing to buy back my time? Let's say you charge, say, $50 an hour and you work 60 hours a week. You're making decent money, but you have no life. If you charge $500 an hour and work 10 hours a week, you're making the same money, but you have 50 hours back. You need to price yourself based on the life you're trying to build and not the life you think you're supposed to have. And since we're talking about knowing your worth, we need to address something that trips up almost everyone who's trying to get unstuck and build their own brand. I recently got a message from someone in our community, and they had this question. They said, a massive, very profitable company reached out and asked me or asked them to consult for them. But they said they have no budget right now. They told me it would be great exposure. And so they're asking if they should do that job, if they should go for it. Now, here's my take on that. Exposure does not pay you a mortgage. Exposure does not pay the bills. Exposure does not buy you a life. When a profitable organization tells you that they have no budget for your expertise, what they're actually communicating in essence is that your expertise is not a priority to them. They are perfectly willing to let you build their dream for free. You have to learn to set a kind of ironclad boundary here. If you're going to be the CEO of your own life, you have to act like one. When this happens, you don't have to be rude, but you must be very, very strategic. If they genuinely have no cash, you negotiate for equivalent value. It doesn't necessarily have to be cash value. You can say, I understand that you as a company have no budget for this project, but in exchange for my time, I maybe require full rights to the data we collect, or maybe I require access to your email list. And if they say no to that, then you simply walk away. You cannot build your own empire if you're constantly giving away your bricks for free just because you want to be liked. In fact, my partner used to be very, very upset at me for doing so much work for free, so much services, so much knowledge for free when I could be charging and making something from it. The thing is, you need to respect your own time, and the market will eventually mirror that respect back to you. In a previous conversation, we also talked about the black tax, the financial burden of supporting everyone around you. This is the professional version of that. If you don't set boundaries, people will drain your time the same way they drain your bank account. Now let's bring all of this together. We've talked about ripping up the default scorecard. We've talked about knowing your worth and charging for it. We've also talked about setting boundaries, but none of this matters if you don't actually do something. A lot of you are stuck in the analysis paralysis. You have 3 different business ideas, or 2 different countries you want to move to, or maybe 4 different skills you want to learn. You sit with your notebooks and your spreadsheets trying to figure out which one is the perfect choice. I'm going to let you in on a secret that completely changed the way I operate. You don't decide what works, the market decides. If you have an idea, you're probably wrong, you're likely wrong on your idea. The only time you know you're right is when you have 2 things, data or dollars. Instead of spending 6 months trying to build a fancy website and designing a logo for a business that nobody has validated already, I would say get scrappy. Put a simple post on LinkedIn, send an email to 10 people you know, offer your services, and if they give you their email addresses, that's data. If they hand you a credit card, that's dollars. But then if nobody responds, congratulations, because now you know you didn't waste your time and money on something that may not work for you. You just wasted maybe 1 afternoon on testing your idea. This means that you can now pivot and you try the next thing. Taking action creates clarity. Thinking does not create clarity. Taking action does. You have unlimited tries in life, but then there's no referee who is going to blow a whistle and say, well, okay, you failed 3 times already, so you're out of the game. None. You can completely recreate your life as many times as you need to, but you have to get out of the starting blocks. And listen, I know some of you are probably thinking, well, I feel like I'm behind while everyone else is ahead. First of all, they are not. Most people are pretending. And secondly, there's no timeline. The only deadline that matters is the one you die on. Everything else is negotiable. A property developer once told me, if you base your success purely on how much money you have, you will lose, because there'll always be someone with something better. Success has to be anchored in what the money actually allows you to buy, what the money actually allows you to do, and how happy it makes you. I was just watching a video of someone claiming he could do better with 1,000 and get admired than someone who maybe shows up with 10,000. And the way he explained this breakdown was so impressive, and I just watched, and while I was watching, I was just nodding my head. And I also tried to compare this with the story of a founder from the Nordics who also explained how he blew up his entire life after making so much money. And then the realization came to him when he woke up in a penthouse one morning somewhere in Spain. And then he checked his bank account and noticed he only had about 1,000 euros left. At that time, he was in great shock. And now that I said it, I just think about the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. The lesson here is to stop benchmarking your life against other people's highlight reels. Now, I think I've mentioned this concept of thematic decades before, and it applies perfectly in this situation. You don't have to have your whole life figured out just yet. You just need to figure out what you need to do within this specific season. Maybe the next 3 years are purely about mastering a skill, or maybe the next 5 years could be about aggressive earnings. Just pick a theme and move with it. The thing is, I love themes very much, and I see them changing frequently over time, because at every given point in life, you need to maybe set goals or set particular themes for a particular season of your life. For example, let's say your 20s, you might want to be proving yourself, building skills, testing ideas, failing fast, of course. In your 30s, maybe you dedicate that for building wealth, scaling what works, investing aggressively. Your 40s might be for health and presence, protecting your energy, spending time with family. You don't need a 50-year plan, you need a 10-year theme. What's the theme of this decade for you? If you're in your 20s and your theme is exploration, stop stressing about not having it all figured out. That's not the assignment for this decade. If you're in your 40s and your theme is presence, stop feeling guilty for turning down opportunities that require all of your time. That's not your theme anymore. And when people ask you, what skills should I focus on? How do I prioritize? How do I set goals? The answer is simple. Does this fit my theme for this decade? If your theme is, say, building wealth, focus on skills that generate income. If your theme is health, focus on skills that protect your energy, delegation, saying no, building systems. So actually, you don't have a problem with the skills gap or clarity gap, because once you know your theme, the skills become obvious. And here's the thing, you have permission to do what you want. You don't need to justify your dreams anymore. Why not? The only person who has to live your life is you. So build the one you actually want. We cover a lot of ground on this show. Sometimes we get deep into the mechanics of investing or systems or global strategy. I know we'll be diving even deeper into some of those hard tactics in maybe some future conversations which we have lined up already. But today I just want to strip it all back to the foundation. If you're feeling unfulfilled right now, it's likely because the ladder you're climbing is leaning against the wrong wall. So you need to step off the ladder, sit down and figure out what you actually want to do. You have to figure out what actually gives you peace, gives you sovereignty and control over your own time. Then you package your skills, charge what you're genuinely worth without apology, protect your time from people who want it for free, and start testing your ideas in the real world. Stop building someone else's dream. It's time to build yours. This is Future Foundations. Take one real action today, and I'll see you on the next one.